Okay, so today I'm going to go over the benefits of having a little bit of S.A.S.S. And of course, it's by Anarchy, that's me. So what is S.A.S.S, you might say? S.A.S.S is an acronym that represents key principles of the 3 rings of combat. Awareness and preparation are the main points it's covering. And it does this in a way that is easy to remember. So S.A.S stands for situational awareness, or scanning, arms, or armed, sharp senses, or sharpness, and squad mates. So having S.A.S is key to successful avoidance and engagement in combat. So if you've got these 4 things going for you, you're pretty much equipped to handle any realistic scenario that you're going to run into. So let's talk about situational awareness first. So situational awareness, or scanning, is key to identifying potential threats and obstacles early so you can use the rest of your S.A.S effectively. So you've got defensive scanning. If you're on defense and you're just walking around, right, you want to see a potential threat or predator before they're right on top of you. You don't want to, look up from your phone and, oh, they're right in front of your face. Or again, you go to some of these other self-defense programs and they teach you that, oh, if somebody grabs your wrist, you do this. If somebody's grabbed your wrist already, you've made a lot of mistakes to get there, right? You want to see them before they have the opportunity to touch you. And then, of course, offensive scanning. S.A.S works on offense as well. If you're looking for a nice wrist to grab, you want to have a good awareness of your surroundings. You want to, let's say you're attacking somebody who, I don't know, beat up your brother or something like that, or stole something from you. You want to see the target before they see you. So the opposite of defensive scanning. You also want to know who else is in the area, who might see what, who might assist on your side, who might assist on their side. You want to just have a full understanding of what's going on, both offensively and defensively. Now let's talk about arms. Proper preparation requires the adequate equipment to effectively act in violent situations. So like anything, taking a test, you don't want to show up without a pencil and without studying. You want to make sure you're properly prepared for what you need to do. Okay, to be effectively armed, you must possess or come to possess weapons from orders 2, 3, and 4. Now that's another lecture I did, the 5 orders of combat. But basically that's melee weapons, throwing weapons, and projectile weapons. So the reality is guns are king. That's number 1. If you can have a handgun or a firearm of some sort, that's number 1. Pepper spray is number 2. There's other less lethal options, but none really have the ammo capacity of pepper spray. You can spray 5 people pretty quickly. Trying to tase 5 people will take like 15 minutes. You can't really do that. Okay. Now you can carry throwing weapons and melee weapons as well. But these are better more for using in an environment. For instance, if I was to attack you guys right now, you've got a bunch of chairs, you would start throwing at me, maybe knock me out with them. And then if I get too close, you would use one as a melee weapon instead of just using your bare hands. So the lesson here is ideally you want to carry a weapon with you, ideally a projectile weapon, but always, even if you have no weapon, we're humans, we forget things, we leave them at home. Sometimes you go in the nightclub and they get taken from you. Always grab an environmental weapon. Never engage without a weapon unless you absolutely have to. Okay, of course, defensively being armed is important for deterrence and more universal preparation. So I say this, I think, in another lecture in the future, but the primary function of any weapon is a deterrence, right? Is if you introduce a handgun to a predator, just pulling it out is enough to stop the attack 9 out of 10 times. And then, of course, more universal preparation. Going back to if all you have is kickboxing or jujitsu and you get in a fight with multiple attackers or somebody who has a knife or a better weapon, you're not equipped to handle that scenario. So if you don't have modern weapons, you are very limited in what situations you can defend yourself. And then, of course, offensively, being armed is an absolute requirement. If you're on offense, you're the one initiating the action, which means you have, even if it's a few seconds of prep time. So if you're on offense, you're, I don't know, in a war zone or whatever scenario you may be offensive, and you're not properly equipped, there's really no excuse for that. That's just silly. So if you're going to plan an attack and be on offense, make sure you're properly equipped for it. Don't bring a fist fight to a knife fight or a gun fight or, stuff like that. Always be prepared for what you're going to do. So now let's get into sharp senses. So having your mind and body operating at full power is key to using the other parts of your S.A.S effectively and efficiently. Sharp senses can be broken down into two key components, with the first being sobriety. So I make a big point out of this because when people ask me about situational self-defense scenarios, a lot of them are in nightclubs, or when they tell me they've been in fights, it's at music festivals or nightclubs or areas where there's a lot of people intoxicated. And usually it turns out they're also intoxicated themselves. And the tough thing about that is being intoxicated diminishes your combat skills. So it puts you in this tough scenario if you go to these places where you're at the most risk of being attacked. So you want to prepare yourself to defend yourself against that attack. But if you get, inebriated yourself, your skills are diminished. And it's almost like you didn't train at all, depending on how messed up you get. But then you only want to go to those places if you can, get intoxicated. You wouldn't go if you can't. So it's kind of a tough thing to where you want this imaginary scenario where you can go, get intoxicated, and be able to defend yourself intelligently and effectively, and that's just not reality. The two are mutually exclusive. So, and then that's not even getting into the legal side of things. On the legal side of things, if you have any alcohol or any drugs in your system, you're pretty much disqualified from using almost all weapons. You might be able to get away with some less lethal, like a pepper spray, but for firearms and knives that are considered deadly weapons, if you have any intoxicant in your system, you're in big trouble. So outside of the legal side of things, my tactical advice for this is very simple. Never ever go beyond a buzz. Again, while legally having any amount of drugs or alcohol in your system gets you in some legal trouble for defending yourself, you can have 1 or 2 beers or have a little bit of marijuana. I've done jujitsu a little bit high before, and you can maintain most of your combat skills. But this is really just a good general rule in life. If there's any activity you're doing that you feel like you need to be completely intoxicated to do it, the news is you just don't like that activity. Okay, do something better with your time. There are plenty of places to meet sexy singles, lots of activities out there. So, you should never ever go beyond a buzz on purpose in life in general. And then we get to the other component of sharp senses, which is nourishment, being well rested, well fed, and well hydrated. So all of those things are important, but why is hydration underlined? Well, first and foremost, whether or not you need sleep to live is still being debated by science, so we don't know. You can go a couple weeks without food and survive, but a few days without water and you're dead. But the bigger one, and this is just a general rule of thumb, is when you're dehydrated, your odds of ending up unconscious are just higher for any reason. If you get drugged, they're going to have a better effect on you and limit your ability to metabolize the drugs. If you get exhausted, the odds of you passing out from fatigue are higher when you're dehydrated. And another one is you have a membrane around your brain that keeps it in line with your skull movement. So if you're not familiar with it, how you get knocked out is you get hit, your head snaps, your brain kind of stays behind for a second. So if I got hit here, my brain is going to hit this side of my skull, and then the force is going to catch up and slam it against this side of the skull and knock me out. So when you're dehydrated, that membrane is weaker and it is easier for you to get knocked out versus if you're well hydrated and the membrane is stronger. So being properly hydrated is very important for staying conscious and, of course, staying alive. You need to stay conscious to stay alive usually. Now we're going to get into squad mates. Having a group of people with you optimizes your S.A.S and gives your party better situational awareness. 4 sets of eyes is better than 1. 4 sets of ears is better than 1. And of course, your different backgrounds and training and experience, you guys are going to be looking for different things better than others. So it gives you a very good mixed bag of awareness. It increases the effectiveness and efficiency of your arms, okay? So as far as effectiveness goes, if there's multiple of you and you're in a fist fight, well, it's much easier to beat people up when there's 4 of you versus 1. Or even, let's say, efficiency. If you're in a shootout with 1 person, right, if you have squad mates that can flank them and get a clean shot on them, that engagement is going to end much faster than if it was just 1 of you trying to get a good shot on somebody. So Your weapons are more effective when there's more of them and when you've got people to back you up. And can reduce the negative consequences of lack of sharp senses. So the key word here is can. Right? If all 4 of your buddies are all intoxicated, you guys all had 6 shots of tequila, your S.A.S isn't going to be very effective at all, even in a group. But if one of you is sober and paying attention, that at least gives you some good situational awareness. If one of you has a weapon, you can use that. And of course, the other one is if one of you is too intoxicated, the other ones can take care of that person and compensate for their vulnerability. So let's get into the overview and takeaways. S.A.S is the #2 determining factor in combat success rate. Willpower is #1. That's just kind of a side note. If you have no willpower to fight back, your combat skills don't really mean anything. But again, right, having S.A.S, if you're paying attention, you're armed, you're sober, and you're in a squad, you're going to beat somebody that doesn't. If you're a group of teenagers with pepper spray and you're walking home and you're paying attention and you fight a homeless guy that's half out of it, doesn't have a weapon, isn't, is intoxicated and is by himself, you guys are going to win that scenario from a tactical standpoint. If you have the willpower to fight back, you're going to do it. So again, having S.A.S, like I said, is going to give you the ability to take any situation you're going to run into, whether it's one guy with a knife, somebody trying to rob you, sexual assault, even if it's a gang of people and they have guns, if you have guns, you can deter them and have them go bother somebody else who doesn't have guns. So if you're out and about, there's no realistic scenario you're going to run into where you're just overmatched and you're a victim. You're always going to have a chance to fight back against whatever's thrown your way. And then S.A.S is the fastest combat action plan that can be implemented. So you can implement S.A.S today, right now, right? As far as situational awareness goes, you can stop texting and walking, and stop texting and driving. You can stop wearing earbuds in public, right? You can listen and look. You can start that right now as soon as you're done watching this lecture. As far as getting armed goes, you can buy pepper spray. You can buy a knife. Going back to what I said, right? The first use of a weapon is deterrence, right? If you introduce a knife to somebody who's unarmed, they're probably going to back off and let you continue about your business. Okay, again, as far as sobriety goes or having sharp senses, okay, start eating, start drinking water, start sleeping. If you haven't rested well for 2 days and you want to go to a music festival in a city you've never been to, it's not a good idea. Okay, get your rest and go to the next one in 2 months or whatever. And then, of course, squad mates. You can't always depend on people to be there with you, but when you can, exercise that option as much as you can. So again, these are all things you can implement today. This isn't like if somebody grabs your wrist and you need to train that for 3 months before you can do it in muscle memory. These are differences you can make right now to increase your survivability. And that is all. Thank you for watching.
All right.